As per usual, gonna fight with the headphones for a little bit before we officially start up. I will at least turn the scene on. It's a pretty grisly scene.
我らはどうなっても構いませぬ。せめて子供らにはどうかお慈悲を。
So, if you'll remember last time, the doe and the fawn were getting killed by the human village. Unfortunately, even our main character's ancestors, Suzumu's ancestor, Mutsu, I think is his name, he ended up participating in the hunt. Begrudgingly, he did protest about it, but he didn't put up much of a protest. And neither did Suzunohara, or whatever her name is, the other ancestor of Toei, Suzanome. We do not care what happens to us, but please, at least spare the children. Please, spare the children, and we'll hold no grudge for whatever you may do to us. Please, please spare. They smash skulls with countless swings of their axe. Those deer sure know how to howl. Bring the next one here. Accursed man-demon. We shall never forget this atrocity. Their meat was nothing short of a miracle. What if their blood's the same? Maybe we'll be blessed with long life if we drink it. Ugh, this tastes disgusting. I can't see us getting blessed from this. Die. I shall not permit any further humiliation. I just want to smoke the meat and eat that stuff again already. My mouth's just watering thinking of all that delicious meat. The axe was raised and the moon was split. Sister, I go first. The sound of a skull shattering resounded, followed by the hiss of gushing blood. One more to go. Who'd have guessed there was a huge treasure trove just lying around next door? Pluh. The final doe had been forced to see all that had transpired. The whole clan being captured, family young and old alike being slaughtered. Their fur skinned, their flesh carved. The ecstasy of the man-demons at these acts, their expression, something not of this world. And last but not least, the axe came crushing down on her own head. Her life was coming to an end, and all the while she witnessed her adorable siblings being skinned. She wept bitterly and unleashed one final scream. Contemptible humans. Accursed man-demons. We are Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto, the guardian deity of this land. Our grudge shall fester until the end of time. Divine punishment will fall upon all of you. Tremble before our wrath and suffer. What a noisy deer. Right after they shattered the final doe's skull, the villagers fell to the ground in shock. Something akin to black soot burst out of the wound on the doe's head like a geyser, shot straight into the sky. The surroundings were filled with the stench, like the likes of which no one had ever smelt before. Even after it had covered the sky and blotted out the moon, the smoke-like substance continued to gush forth. All the villagers fell to their knees and trembled at the belated realization of their own sinful nature. This was the wrath, Rokugamihiko no Mikoto's divine punishment. Eventually, something like black feathers began to rain down on the village. Was it snow? No, it was pitch-black soot, falling like large snowflakes. Once it started raining on them, the villagers panicked and fled into their homes. They believed they'd been cursed they'd be cursed if they touched it. The village square was devoid of people. What remained were the gruesome corpses of deers hung over bonfires, their extracted entrails, pools of blood, skin, meat, and fur. The snow of soot piled on top of all of them. It continued jetting out of the deer's head with some ferocity as before. Everyone must have hoped it was all a bad dream. They timidly poked their heads out the next morning to find a sky so clear it made the night's events seem like a fantasy, but no one was foolish enough to dismiss them as such. Not when the whole village was covered in a thick blanket of black soot. It wasn't just the houses, the squares, the fields were all the same. Everything in the village was coated with soot, as if it were a painting someone had spilt ink over. Eventually the wind blew it away, but the stains left by the soot didn't fade. What in the world is this?
何かとてつもなく恐ろしいことが起こっている気がします。
I feel like something horrible beyond our wildest dreams is happening right now.
おーい、大変じゃ！見てくれ、金の毛皮が！
Oh no, this is terrible. Look, the golden pelts. The villagers were screaming in the square. No matter how much they pounded the sooty pelts, they would never regain their former luster. They hadn't been smeared by the soot. In the course of a single night, the golden pelts had changed into ordinary sooty pelts. To make things even stranger, the deer they left hanging over the bonfires had been reduced to nothing but bone. How could this happen? Their fur, their meat. It's gone.
呪いじゃ！このすすは呪いのすすじゃ！
It's a curse. The soot's cursed.
みんな大変だ！田畑を見てくれ！
No, this can't be. Look at the fields. And it even ruined their crops. Despite the long drought, a few crops had managed to grow. They'd been thriving strong just the day before, but now they'd lost all vitality, as if the soot had sucked the life out of them. And there was no guarantee the same wouldn't happen to the villagers. Gradually, they began to feel ill in various ways. Their breathing grew ragged, and they developed headaches. Apparently, there were already those who had fevers, or who couldn't even stay on their feet.
巫女様、これはどういうことなんじゃ？
Lady Priestess, what is the meaning of this? Why do you have to ask that, you idiot?
やはりこれは六神様の呪いじゃろうか。わしらはどうすればいいんじゃ？
This really is the Lord Rokugami's curse. What are we supposed to do? You're supposed to not act like an idiot about 2 days ago.
巫女様、巫女様、どうかお助けを。
Lady Priestess, save us.
私はまだ修行中の身ですゆえ、
Oh, so
何もわかりません。
she's in training, and she's gonna try to take in the spirit of Lord Rokugumihiko, or whatever its name is, and it's gonna possess her and basically, like, take her body for all eternity or something. Something like that's gonna happen.
ですが、ババ様なら。
I don't know what's happening, but Granny might.
このすすは人間の体も弱らせるみたいだ。特に体力のないお年寄りたちがやられてる。
The soot appears to weaken the body. The elderly have it the worst.
まさか、ババ様。
No, Granny. Is she gonna die? The old lady, who had already been bedridden with a fever, was now at death's door. Her whole body was swelling and her gums were bleeding. And though she was still alive, she smelt like a rotten corpse.
ババ様、ババ様。
Granny, stay with me.
すずや、わしはもうダメじゃ。
Suzu, this is it for me.
だが、教えてくれんかね。ゆべから妙に騒がしい。
But please, tell me, there has been a ruckus since last night.
何か恐ろしいことが起きているのではないかね。
What I find kind of odd is that they gave the village elder a portrait, but the elderly woman that they carry to this barn or whatever, or this house, doesn't get a portrait. I don't know. That seems a little weird to me. Something horrible is happening, isn't it?
パパ様、実は
Granny, the truth is... Baba-sama.
ババ様は何と
Did she say anything?
これは紛れもなく六神彦の命のたたりだと。
There can be no doubting it. This is Rokugami Mikoto's curse.
おお、なんということじゃ。
This can't be happening.
わしらはどうなるんじゃ。死ぬんか。村は滅ぶんか。
What shall happen to us? Are we all going to be to die? Will our village be destroyed? Sorry, I'm just turning on my own stream so I can watch it. Will our village be destroyed?
ババ様がおっしゃるには同じ呪いの伝承を西国で聞いたことがあるそうです。
Granny said she heard a legend of the same curse in the lands to the west.
神の住まう禁足地を犯した者たちの村に呪いのすすが降り積もると。
Cursed soot raining on a village of those who trespassed on their god's sacred land.
そのすすは大地を覆い土地を呪い、大きな災いを招いて村を滅ぼすのだそうです。
The soot cursed the earth it touched, bringing forth a great calamity, which destroyed the village, so the legend says. They couldn't abandon their village and live on. This wasn't a problem. They could abandon their village and move on. This wasn't a problem that could be solved simply by fleeing the cursed land. Okay, yeah, they can't. In this era, the death of a village means the death of its inhabitants.
この村はどうなるんだ。どうすればいいんだ。
What will happen to the village? What should we do?
六神様の呪いじゃ。もうこの村は終わりじゃ。
It's the curse of Lord Rokugami. Our village is doomed.
みんな落ち着いて。取り乱してもいいことなんてないよ。
Calm yourself. Panicking now will not change anything. The village was seized with fear and anxiety. Before long, they crowded around Suzunome.
巫女様、巫女様、どうかお助けを。
Lady Priestess, save us!
どうか秘術でこの村をお救いくださいませ。
Save the village with your power. You just killed all the deer, and one of them, I think, was the goddess, so they're not gonna care.
そんな、私にはそんな秘術はとても。
I can't. I don't have that kind of power.
博識なババ様ならきっと村を救う秘術もご存知のはず。
The old woman is wise. She should know a way to save the village. She's
村
dying.
のためにどうかよろしくお頼み申し上げまする。
We need to plead with her to deliver us from this curse. It wasn't even noon, and yet the old woman's face had aged 10 years since the morning. Mutsu could see the mark of death on her. She didn't have long. She was already in bad shape to begin with, and the cursed soot only accentuated it.
パパ様。
すずや、何を聞きたいか。
Suzu, I know what you would ask of me.
わかっておるぞい。
お頼み申す。どうか村を救ってください。この通り。
Please save the village. I beg of you. Maybe it's a better thing if the village isn't saved.
身から出たサビじゃ。神を恐れぬ愚か者どもめ。
You're all getting what you deserve. Defying a god. You pack of fools. She barely had the strength to cough. Perhaps she understood she had limited breath left to spare.
呪い封じの秘術があるにはある。
There is a ritual that can seal the curse.
本当ですか？
Really?
邪法じゃ。
But it's a black art.
すすの呪いを制すには劣らぬほどに呪われし邪法がいる。
A ritual most contemptible to control the soot.
邪法とは。
What do you mean by black art?
すずや、わしの荷物から本を。
Suzu, get the tome from my bag.
パパ様。まさか、あの本ですか？
Granny, you don't mean that tome, do you? It was a dreadful tome containing the black arts. But no matter how dark the magic, it could sometimes be used for good. However, it was a spell that could not be used arbitrarily.
呪いのすすを生贄の身に封じ続けるという呪われた邪法じゃ。
It's a cursed black art, to sail the soot into a living host, sacrifice. They should have sailed it into this old man. Maybe they do propose that. But they sail it into her instead.
永遠に封じ続ける他はない。
So obviously it gets sailed into the two Toei and Suzuhara get sailed into their ancestors for all eternity. In order to save the village from the cursed soot, it must be sailed away for eternity.
神の怒りの代償としてこの村の者たちは永遠に邪法を受け継ぎ続けるのじゃ。
In exchange for invoking divine wrath, the people of the village must pass down the blight until the end of time.
村が滅ばずともあんたらのその苦しみは少しは六神様を慰めるじゃろうって。
Though the village will be spared, Lord Rokugami will find some solace in your suffering.
覚悟の上です。
We are prepared.
そして神を恐れぬ愚か者たちがどのような災いを被ったか子々孫々まで永劫に伝え続けるのじゃ。
And you fools who failed to fear your god must forever pass down the legend of the calamity that befell your village to your descendants.
伝えます。ですからどうかお助けを。
We swear we shall, so please save us.
あんた字は読めるかい？
Can you read?
読めますとも。村で字が読めるのはわしだけです。
Yes, I'm the only one in the village who can.
すすだきの秘術が記されておる。読み理解し
The ritual's
あ
here.
んたが執り行うのじゃ。
Read the ritual and understand it. Only then may you perform it. The old woman tore a page out of the black tome and gave it to the mayor. She then handed the black arts tome to Suzunome and ordered her to burn it. Finally, she whispered into Suzunome's ear.
鈴やよくお聞き。
Listen well, Suzu.
お前はにまとめ日が沈む前に
Gather your things, and before the sun sets.
喉をつ
Her face grew more purple, and then as suddenly as a puppet, with its strings cut, she went limp.
しっかり
Mutsu desperately hit her on the back, but was too late. She'd been trying to tell Suzunomi something in secret, but had failed to finish. The mayor glanced at Suzunome, weeping into her departed mentor's chest, then turned his attention to the spell page.
これが呪いのすすを封じ込める。
This is the ritual that will sail the soot. And the villagers were villagers were surrounding the hut, their faces painted with fear. Once Mutsu and the mayor exited, they crowded around and clung desperately to them. The mayor raised his hand with a grim expression and urged them to quiet down. Once he was sure he'd gotten everyone's attention, he opened his mouth.
村を救う秘術を巫女様より賜ったぞ。
The priestess has given us a way to save the village. Those words stirred up the villagers, but the mayor quickly silenced them.
村尾さん一体
And how do we
そ
do
れ
that?
はどのような
生贄を一人選び出さねばならぬ。
We must select a living sacrifice. Why don't you make it this old man? It was his fault. Another commotion amongst the villagers.
静まり
Order.
生贄は誰でも良いわけではない。若者から選ばねばならぬ。
The sacrifice can't be just anybody, it needs to be somebody young. Well, it shouldn't be the people that protested against this thing. The village youth were the most productive workers, and therefore their family breadwinners. Even if they weren't, no family would willingly offer up one of their own.
この儀式は明日の朝には行わねばならぬのじゃ。
The ritual must be performed by tomorrow morning.
そう急に。
We have to decide quickly.
生贄を決めねばならぬ。
生贄はどうなるんじゃ。
So what will happen to the sacrifice?
命を奪うわけではない。
They will not die.
呪いのすすのすべてをその身に封じ込めるのじゃ。
The person will receive the cursed soot into their body and seal it away. The village could be saved in exchange for making the sacrifice carry the full weight of the cursed soot. But this ritual would not eradicate the soot, nor would it be sealed
生贄
away.
になったものはどうなるんですか。
And what will happen to the sacrifice? No, it would need to be sealed by a sacrifice for all eternity.
神の呪いを一身に受けるのじゃ。楽なことではあるまい。
The divine punishment will be theirs alone. It will be no easy. It will not be easy.
ここにはすすを封じた生贄は長くは生きられず、やがて衰弱して死ぬとある。
The sacrifice is fated to live a short life, and they will fade away fast and die.
でも生贄が死んだら封じ込めた呪いのすすは。
But what happens to the sacrifice once they die?
生贄が死ねば封じたすすは再び解き放たれ、村を覆ってしまう。
When the sacrifice dies, the seal will be broken, and the soot will cover the village once again.
だから生贄は死ぬ前にこうなさねばならぬのじゃ。
That is why the sacrifice must have a child before they pass away.
怖っ。
And why?
さすれば生まれくる赤子に再び呪いのすすは封じ込められるという。
It is written that the sacrifice that the soot will pass on to the child at birth.
そしてその赤子もやはり若くして死ぬ。
The child will also be doomed to a short life.
死ぬ前にまたこうなし、次なる赤子に受け継がせることで呪いのすすを封じ続けるのじゃ。
So they too must pass the soot on to a child in order to keep the soot sealed.
なんて。
That's horrible. Aye.
なんて恐ろしい。
皆の者よ、これだけがこの村を神の呪いから救う唯一の方法じゃ。
Lend me your ears, everyone. This is the only way to save the village from the curse.
子々孫々まで永遠に我らはこの秘術を繰り返し続けねばならぬ。
We must continue this ritual for all eternity. The villagers burst into an uproar. Sacrificing somebody was by all means better than letting the village be destroyed. But who would be the sacrifice? It could have been anyone. One of the elderly, without much long to live, would have likely stepped forward. But it had to be somebody young, someone who could have a child. Of course, one of the sickly people couldn't bear the curse. It had to be somebody healthy. The villagers all fell silent. No family could afford to offer up one of their young. Even if they could, no one would volunteer to bear such a vile curse. But they had to make a decision, and by the next morning, no less. As the mayor had said, they had to hold a ritual to seal the soot away by then. The necessary preparations for all of this were written down in the spell's pages.
みんな、村を覆ったすすをかき集めるのじゃ。
We can wipe away all the soot covering the village.
各家の長たちはわしの家へ集まっておくれ。
The heads of the family have to gather at my house.
生贄を決めねばならぬ。
We have to choose a sacrifice. Uh-oh. Who are they gonna sacrifice?
呪いの
Curse
す
soot.
す。
そう。それでこの土地の名前がすすだになったのよ。
Right, and that's how this land got the name of Susuda, Field of Soot.
さっき鹿は神聖視されているからお年寄りは鹿の肉を食べないって言ったわよね。
Remember how I told you the elderly people here refuse to eat venison because they view the deer as sacred?
本当は神聖視じゃなかったの。呪いに怯えていたのよ。
The truth is, they don't, it isn't because they view them as sacred at all. They're just afraid.
鹿の肉を食べたら呪われてしまうかもしれない。
The elderly are afraid that they'll be cursed if they eat the deer meat.
それが長い年月の中で改ざんされ、すすだの地名からも すすが消え、
Sorry. The whole legend was altered over the course of centuries.
それが長い年月の中で改ざんされていって、
They erased the soot from the name of the land and changed its kanji to reflect that.
呪い元神社の名も岩井本神社に名を変え、
Isn't that breaking the curse oath? Then they changed the name of the shrine from Noroimoto to Iwaimoto.
過去を語り継ぐ伝承さえも
Even the town's
書き換え
history.
てしまったのよ。
Even the town's history got rewritten.
でもどんなに過去を隠そうとしても、
But no matter how much you cover up the past,
神の怒りは永遠。
a god's wrath is eternal.
邪法によって封じた呪いのすすが消え去ることはないの。
They couldn't completely rid the village of the soot.
まさかその呪いのすすが現代にも。
So does that mean the soot's still here in the present?
そういうこと。
Exactly.
それを受け継ぐ末裔の一人が
And I am one of its inheritors. What? I guess because the soot person would have more than one child?
本家じゃないけれどね。いわば分家。
Though I'm not from the main family, I'm from a so-called branch family.
本家に比べれば私の受けてる呪いなんて可愛いものよ。
The soot I've inherited is nothing compared to the main families. For some reason, I thought I knew exactly who she meant when she mentioned the main family. Noroimoto Shrine eventually became Iwaimoto Shrine, and the ones who ran it were the Kurakamis.
じゃあ黒髪さんは。
Then Kurakami is...
そう。トエちゃんは1000年前の六神彦の命の呪いを現代に受け継ぐ呪われし生贄。
That's correct. Toei is the current sacrifice, the inheritor of Rokugama Hiko no Mikoto's curse from 1,000 years ago. You're 100 years too late, 1,000 years too late.
トエちゃんが本家で私が分家。つまり私たちはものすごく遠縁の親戚にあたるというわけね。
Toei's from the main family, while we're from the branch family. That makes us very distant relatives.
だから
So I know.
彼女が六神彦の命の呪いでどれだけ苦しんでいるか。
For that reason, I know just how much she's suffering from Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto's curse. Oh. Booming music out of sync, singing, microphone feedback, bursts of flashing light. That large room in the karaoke club was full of odious enthusiasm. The 10 members of Shokane Numa's delinquent group were clamoring about. I forgot about them. The platter of fried chicken, mountains of french fries, and cups of overflowing drinks were lined up across the table. It was too much for even 10 people. Not to mention too extravagant for students, who should have had very little income.
翔さん、またジンジャーエール頼んでいいっすか？
Sho, can I get some ginger ale?
あ、俺コーラにフランクフルト。なんだ。
Sorry.
あ、俺コーラにフランクフルト。あと漬物とか頼んじゃっていいっすか？
Right, I'd like a hot dog and Coke. Right, can I get some pickles too? Pickles? Seriously. Do you think this is a drive-thru?
なんだよ漬物って。お前しびいな。おめえらも何でも好きなもん頼めや。金ならいくらでもあんだからや。
Order whatever you like, guys. I got all the money in the world.
もっとハゲチーノじゃんじゃん歌え。曲切らすんじゃねえぞ。
But keep the singing going. I don't want to hear a single song get to the end.
俺はよ、このイカれた大騒ぎが大好きなんだよ。
This has got to be a
あの曲が
non-stop
切れた
party.
時の沈黙が耐えらんねえんだよ。
I ain't got no time for silence.
翔さん、ごちになります。
Gotcha. As long as you keep paying, Sho. Sho always had 10,000 yen bills in his wallet. From time to time, Sho would use the vast amount of money to treat his followers to parties at the karaoke club. But in actuality, Sho rarely sang. He would always bury the table in more food than he could eat and let his lackeys go to town. To him, sitting back on the farthest sofa and looking out on it all with the presence of a boss was the greatest ego trip there was. Crouching low at Sho's feet was none other than Toei. No doubt, Toei was going along with his sick tastes again. She licked his bare toe with her slender tongue.
つくづく翔さんの性癖ってマニアックだと思います。
I swear, you got some really weird fetishes, Sho.
俺たちは高校出たら即結婚だとや。
Gonna get married as soon as we graduate.
俺は紳士だからよ。それまではフィアンセのミサオはちゃんと守るわけ。
I'm a gentleman, you know? Damn straight, I'm gonna protect her chastity until we're married.
あいや、いいなすけとかマジ羨ますよ。
I'm jealous you got a fiancé there.
どうやったら今時いいなすけとか作れるわけですか。
How'd you snag one of those so early?
ああ？お前知らねえの？一目惚れだよ。こいつの一目惚れ。
You don't know. It was love at first sight. This chick fell head over heels for me.
なんかよ、ある日突然黒髪家から俺ん家に電話があったんだよ。
It all started when the Kurakamis called my dad out of the blue.
娘が俺に一目惚れしたからお見合いしてくんねえかってよ。
They said their daughter had fallen for me, and the second she saw me, and wanted to arrange a marriage.
なあ、おめえの一目惚れなんだよな。
Ain't that right? You fell for me at first sight, didn't ya?
はい、翔様。
Yes, Sir Sho.
すっげえ、そんなことってマジであるんすね。
Man, I didn't think shit like that was for real.
まあ正直会うまでは割と浮かれてたんだわ。
Well, honestly, I felt like I was the hottest crap in the world till I met her.
何しろ黒髪家ってこの辺りじゃ結構知られた金持ちなんだろ。
I mean, the Kurakamis are the richest people here, yeah?
うち親が不動産屋やってんすけど、黒髪家はマジパネっすよ。
My dad's a realtor, but he doesn't hold a candle to the Kurakamis.
この辺りで商売やるときは黒髪に挨拶がねえとシャレになんないって言ってましたもん。
I heard you can't do business with them. You can't do business around these parts without their say-so.
だよな。そんな大物の金持ちのご令嬢が俺に一目惚れってんだから、そりゃ浮かれるだろ。
Right? So you bet your sweet ass I got excited when I heard the daughter of those effing bigwigs fell for me.
で会ってみたら頭のネジがぶっ飛んでるイカレ女だったわけだけどよ。
But then I met her, and I realized what an effing nutcase she was.
どうか亀沼翔殿とのご婚約を切にご検討願いたい。
We humbly ask that you please consider our proposal to Master Sho Kaminuma. My folks were at a total loss for words, same one for me. Who wouldn't be with these people asking me to marry their daughter?
実は娘は遺伝的な持病があり、長くは生きられません。
The truth is, my daughter suffers from a genetic illness. She does not have long to live.
あれの母も祖母も30を迎えるまでに亡くなりました。
Neither her mother nor her grandmother made it past 30. So only the women die? The husband stays alive? Forever?
トエも
Like for a long time?
おそらくはせいぜいあと10年ほどしか生きられないでしょう。
Toei also probably has only another 10 years or so to live. When I heard that, my first thought was, give me a break, man. That's some shit out of a crappy TV show. Basically, their daughter wouldn't last long, so they wanted me to marry her before she kicked the bucket, cause she'd fallen for me at first sight. I got the picture. Sounds like an interesting story, yeah, but in reality it felt like a total pain in the ass. The Kurakamis were way too formal for my taste. I love my freedom. I'd be damned if I were tied down. That's the kind of guy I am. You all know that, right? So I told Toei's old man how it was. I don't get what your deal is, but it sounds like a real pain, so I'll pass. Oh, but I ain't dumb. I worded it nicer than that. But even then, he wouldn't give up. He said if I got engaged to his daughter, there'd be a boatload of money in it for me. I'm talking hundreds of millions of yen here. My folks and I couldn't believe it.
もちろん翔殿の大切な人生をお借りするのです。これくらいは当然と思っております。
We will be having Master Sho's precious life on loan, of course. So this much money is only natural.
トエが亡くなるまでの間、一切の金銭的なご迷惑はおかけいたしません。
Until Toei passes away, you will want for nothing. He brought out a big-ass attaché case, stuffed with bills. My folks looked like they were about to pass out. I couldn't even think straight. The power of money is some real shit. The girl I'd written off as some whack job suddenly looked like the prettiest girl in the town. She'd be a fine piece of you-know-what, so long as she kept her mouth shut. On top of that, I had to put up with her for a few years, till she bit it. All the money would be mine, and all I had to do was play along with the guy's bizarre engagement plan. At that point, my mind was made up.
もしご承諾いただけるのでしたら、当方からお願いしたいことがございます。
Should you accept the proposal, we do have a request we'd like to make of you.
婚礼の件です。高校を卒業と同時に、直ちに婚礼を挙げていただきたく存じます。
This concerns the wedding. We'd like you to get married as soon as you finish high school.
そして、生まれた最初の子を、当家の養子にいただきたいのです。
Furthermore, we would like to take your first child and raise it ourselves. It all clicked together at that point. So what the Kurakami family really wanted was a successor. Their daughter would die without having a kid if she kept sitting her ass around. They couldn't let that happen. So they decided to capitalize on her love at first sight and come up with this messed up proposal.
で、俺は速攻 OK したってことよ。
And so I said yes on the spot.
こいつ、俺は使い切れねえ小遣いで遊びまくり。こいつは何が何でも後継ぎを産まなきゃならねえんだ。俺には逆らえねえ。
They need her to have a successor, no matter what it takes. I can't say no to that. In exchange, I get unlimited allowance to play around with.
んで卒業したら、こいつの結婚ごっこに付き合ってよ。ガキができるまでやりまくりよ。
Then, after graduation, I get to play husband and wife with this chick. Then I get to have all the fun I want with her, till she's knocked up.
何しろガキは向こうが引き取るってんだ。俺には何の後腐れもねえ。
And the best part of it all, the old man's gonna adopt a brat, so I ain't gotta do F all for it.
すっげえ話っすね。
Holy crap, that's a hell of a story, man.
一目惚れ万々歳だぜ。イケてる面に生まれてきたことを親に感謝しねえといけねえな。
3 cheers for love at first sight. I gotta thank my folks for giving me this sexy face.
なあ、トエ。お前、俺のことが好きで仕方ねえんだよな。
Ain't that right, Toei? You love me so much you can't even take it, right?
はい。
Yes.
初めて翔様をお見かけした時から、トエは翔様の虜です。
My heart has been yours ever since I first laid eyes on you.
マジで？はは、イケメンはつれえわ。
Seriously, man, it's sure tough to be hot. Show Jared as he hawked up some spit.
それ。
Look it up.
一目惚れした翔様の唾だぞ。ありがたく舐められるよな。
That's the spit of your beloved Sir Show, you know. Ain't you grateful to get a taste of it?
おいしいよな。
Spit tastes great, don't it?
はい。翔様の唾。
Yes, your spit's delicious.
おいしいです。
He cackled and basked in self-satisfaction. His followers gulped at this perverted scene.
あ？曲を切らすんじゃねえよ。
The hell is that? Don't stop the music.
すんません。おい、リモコン取れよ。
Sorry, get the remote. His followers hastily resumed the party. Sho clicked his tongue as he watched Toei continue to lick the floor.
てめえなんざ人間じゃねえ。犬だな。
You ain't no human. You're just a dog. He kicked Toei with his heel. The Japanese doll she always carried fell to the floor. She frantically picked it up. Her father had made one other request to show that he couldn't comprehend for the life of him. He'd asked for him to overlook the doll she always carried and not ask any questions about it.
その人形様には嫉妬しちまいそうになるぜ。
Fucking hell. You gonna make me jealous of a goddamn doll?
呪いのすすには霊的な加護を失わせる効果があるの。
The cursed soot always takes away one's spiritual protection.
人は誰しも 程度の差はあるけど、霊的な防御力を持っている。
All humans have spiritual defenses, albeit to differing degrees.
それがなくなるというのは、どういうことだと思うかしら？
Do you know what would happen if they were to lose those spiritual defenses?
霊に襲われやすくなるとか。
They'd be targets for the spirits.
そういうことね。私はそれを霊による障害、霊障と呼んでいるわ。
That's right. They'd invite meddling by spirits, or as I like to call them, hauntings. Spirits are akin to bacteria drifting in the air. They're invisible, inaudible, and ineffective against a sound body, but the body is unable to fight them off when it's sick or tired. You know how sometimes you catch cold that otherwise wouldn't have been a cause for concern? Hauntings are the same. They strike when you grow emotionally unstable or weak. When all that adds up, your spiritual defense power lowers, making you easy fodder for spiritual meddling. Have you ever had daydreams where you were tired or spacing out? Some of those daydreams were the result of spirits messing with you. For people of sound mind, though, that's all they are, daydreams. But when your spiritual defenses are low, they can turn into nightmares, inviting temptation from the spirits. You've heard stories every year about kids who can't get used to a new environment and jump right into a train, haven't you? Amongst them are unfortunate victims who were tempted by hauntings.
私も、すっそを封じ込めた生贄の末裔だから、この体には呪いのすすが含まれてる。
I'm a descendant of the original sacrifice to the soot, so I have some of the soot within me as well.
もちろん、ドイちゃんに比べればわずかなものだけど。
The amount of soot I have in me is, of course, not to the amount that Toei has.
一般の人たちとは比べ物にならないほどの霊障を受けるの。
But I still get hauntings far worse than the average person.
霊障を特に受けやすい思春期にはとても苦労があったわ。
I got the worst of them back in my adolescence. It was painful, to say the least. Hauntings appear most frequently in adolescence, the most emotionally volatile period of a person's life. Even those with normal spiritual defenses are easily prone to hauntings then. Many people with a fascination toward the occult in adolescence get their start from the sense of mystique they had for their own hauntings.
霊障というのはどんなものなんですか？
How exactly would you define a haunting?
一言で言ってしまえば、何の予告もなく突然始まる悪夢のような白チュームね。
To put it simply, it's a nightmarish daydream that comes completely out of nowhere.
我に返れば、それが白チュームだったと気づけるのだけれど。
Once you come to your senses, it's easy to realize you were hallucinating.
タッチの悪いことに、ほとんどの場合、いつから悪夢が始まっていたのか。
But the difficult part, the really nasty part, is that you can't tell when the nightmare started in most cases. As for recent hauntings, right, take Susuda Station. It's not a big station yet, it's been known as a suicide hotspot, right? The spirits must have been calling out to people. On that day, I was waiting at the train. Then all of a sudden I heard an office worker talking on the phone or something nearby. I was bored and had nothing better to do, so I listened in. What I heard was disturbing. She was talking about how it was okay to jump onto the tracks and reset everything if you felt like you were at the end of your rope. But disturbing as it was, the more I listened, the more fascinating I found it. Then suddenly I realized it was almost as if she were talking to me. Next I saw a blue sky under the train platform. There was a lush field at the bottom of it. At that moment I remember thinking how wonderful it would be if I were to be sucked right into it.
その時、たまたま誰かに肩をぶつけられ、我に返ったの。
Right then, somebody bumped into me, bringing me back to reality.
我に返って初めて、直前までのそれらが霊障による白チュームであると気づくのよ。
When I came to my senses, I realized everything that had been happening was just a daydream caused by a haunting.
もし肩をぶつけられていなかったら。
But if the person hadn't bumped into you, you would have.
考えるのも恐ろしいわね。
Just thinking about it gives me the chills.
実際、過去には霊障に惑わされて、赤信号の横断歩道に飛び出して、スクーターに接触したこともあるわ。
There was one time that I got hit by a moped because a haunting tricked me into running out into the middle of the street during a red light.
あれがもし大型トラックだったら、 私はここにいないでしょうね。
If they had been a truck, I wouldn't be here right now, most likely.
死に引きずり込んでくるような霊障は幸いにも稀よ。
Fortunately, life-threatening hauntings are very rare.
ほとんどの霊障は単に不気味だったりグロテスクだったりで、
Most hauntings are just creepy, grotesque, or unpleasant.
まあその不快なだけというのでも十分に答えるんだけれどね。
Though dealing with those hauntings isn't exactly easy either. Even if a sound person only had a nightmare once in a while, they'd still wake to find themselves drained of strength and spirit. So it wouldn't be hard to imagine how tiring it would be to go through with that sort of thing on a daily basis.
成人すれば次第に収まっていくけれどね。とにかく思春期が一番辛いのよ。
The hauntings weaken over time, so anyway, adolescence is the hardest part of life.
彼女たちが傍目にはぼんやりしているだけにしか見えなくても、私には分かったの。
Though it may look like those girls are only spacing out on the outside, I know the truth.
霊障に苦しむ私と同じ呪いのすすを封じた生贄の末裔だとね。
Like me, they're the descendants of a sacrifice and suffer from hauntings.
先生の他にも生贄の末裔がいるんですね。
Are you saying there are other descendants of the sacrifice apart from you?
まさか。
No, you don't mean the
消
LCSC.
失した古文書の写しによるとね、
According to an ancient document long since lost to a fire,
昔生贄に呪いの負担がかかりすぎて子を産む前に死んでしまいそうになったんですって。
there was once a sacrifice whose burden was so great it appeared as though she would die before she could give birth to a child.
その時秘術によって生贄のすすを5つ子に分けたと伝えられるの。
It is said that a spell is used to spread the sacrifice's soot between quintuplets.
そのうちの一人の末裔が黒髪さんで、一人が先生で。
The descendant of one of those is Kurikami. You're a descendant of another one, Anne.
残りの3人の末裔が誰かもう想像がついてるわね。
I think you could piece together who the other three are.
じゃあシャチホコ部というのは。
Then the local community service club is actually...
5人の末裔が同じ学校にいるなんて、これはある種の奇跡だわ。
It's quite a miracle, isn't it? How the descendants of the quintuplets are all in the same school.
少しでも
Oh, I did not mean to do that.
私はシャチホコ部を作り彼女たちを集めたの。
I created the LCSC and gathered those four together. I was hoping I could do something to ease their hauntings, no matter how little. Kiko, Minobe, and Riria. They were all descendants of the original sacrifice to the cursed soot. And Miss Hinagata ran the infirmary. She must have realized some of the students she treated were suffering from hauntings. It really was quite the miracle.
じゃあキコちゃんも霊障を。
Then Kiko's suffered from hauntings too.
当時は貧血と白チュームに悩まされると言ってちょくちょく保健室を訪れていたわ。
Kiko used to frequent the infirmary a while back, complained about suffering from anemia and bad daydreams.
美濃部さんも布川さんもわけのわからない白チュームで辛い。これは何かの病気なのかと言ってね。
The same happened with Minobe and Nunakawa. They were struggling with these inexplicable daydreams and wondered if it was some kind of illness.
でも今は少なくとも3人についてはだいぶ霊障も和らいだと思うわ。
But I think the hauntings have abated, with those three at least anyway.
霊障は抑える方法があるんですか？
Is there any way to reduce the hauntings?
あるわ。一番効果的なのは徳を得ること。
Yes, the most effective way is to earn goodwill, hence the club. LCSC performed community service by contributing to society, received thanks from
良い
others.
行いや人々の尊敬や感謝を得ると人は幾ばくかの霊的防御力を得られるの。
By performing good deeds, people can obtain some spiritual defense by gaining that respect and gratitude from those good deeds.
日頃の行いって言い方があるでしょ。
Have you heard the expression, a good deed is never lost?
良い行いをする人は運気に恵まれ、悪い行いをする人は運気を失う。
Those who do good deeds are blessed with good fortune, Well, karma catches up to those who commit bad deeds.
つまり、大昔の人は、良い行いが霊的な力を宿すと知っていたんですね。
So what you're saying is, people from long ago knew that spiritual power resided in good deeds.
そういうこと。つまり、霊障には社会奉仕活動が一番効果的というわけ。
Bingo. In other words, community service is the most effective defense against hauntings. With that, I understood why the LCSC existed. But wait, what did that mean for Natsumi? Kiko and I were related, though distantly. Did that mean I had the accursed soot in my body too?
それはないわ。呪いのすすは最初の子供に全て引き継がれるの。
No, the soot is only inherited by the firstborn child.
だから、すすはらくんには呪いは引き継がれていないわ。
So you haven't inherited the curse.
もちろん、ゼロというわけではないだろうけれど、それでも微量の問題ない量だと思うわ。
That's not to say that you don't have a little bit of it in you, but it wouldn't cause you any trouble.
では、どうして僕と夏くんを？
Then why recruit Natsumi?
私が霊障に苛まれていた時、すすはらくんとあつたくんの二人がやってきたら、霊障が晴れたの。
I was suffering from a haunting one day when you and Atsuda came into the infirmary. Right after you came in, it went away.
そんな経験は初めてだったわ。私はあなたたち二人のどちらかに不思議な力があるのではないかと思ったの。
Something like that never happened before, so I figured one of you must have a mysterious power.
そしておそらく
I think it's you.
あなたが修行しているという神前武術。
It must
それ
be
のおかげでしょうね。
It must be thanks to the divine tribute style you train in. The divine tribute style was a sacred thing, dedicated to God. According to Miss Hinagata, that which was spiritually pure held the power to ease hauntings.
すすはらくんにはあなたたち二人のおかげ。
Keep doing that, sorry.
すすはらくんには霊障を和らげる力が、そしてあつたくんには賑やかにしてみんなを明るくする力が。
You have the power to relieve hauntings, while Atsuda's enthusiasm cheers everybody up.
あなたたち二人のおかげで、みんなは健やかに学校生活を送ることができるのよ。
It's thanks to the two of you that those girls are able to live healthy school lives.
あなたたちが来てから体調はどうかとみんなに尋ねたわ。
After you two arrived, I inquired about their health.
そしたら効果はてきめん。
The effects kicked in right away.
すすはらくんがやってきてから気持ちの悪い白昼夢を見る数が減った気がすると、3人からそれぞれ返事があったわ。
The three said they had fewer bad daydreams since you showed up.
それが僕が社長コブに招かれた理由だったんですか？
And so you invited me to join the LCSC.
信じてくれる？
Do you believe this crazy
こんな突拍子
story?
もない話。
疑いなんかしないです。
I believe you.
僕は理由もわからず今日までずっと修行を続けてきました。
All my life I've kept up my training without knowing what it was for.
それがみんなの役に立てると分かったんだから、なんだか嬉しいです。
Now that I know it's helping everybody, I'm happy I kept up my training.
信じてもらえてよかったわ。
Thanks for believing in me.
先生がおかしなことを言い出した。 PTA で大騒ぎ、学校追放なんてならないか
Hell,
心配だったのよ。
Miss Hinagata's talking crazy. The PTA goes nuts. Fired on the spot. I was worried it was gonna go like that.
話してくださってありがとうございます。
Thanks for telling me all this.
僕でお役に立てることがあるなら何でも協力したいです。
If you think I could be of assistance, I'll do whatever I can to help.
ありがとう、すすはらくん。
Thank you so much, Suzuhara.
あなたが来てからみんなの霊障、たまに発作的に大きな霊障にやられてしまう時もあると思うの。
Everybody's hauntings have decreased substantially since you've arrived. However, I think there are still times where everybody is struck by particularly nasty ones.
そんな時、助けてあげてほしいの。
When they're struck by those hauntings, I'd like you to help them.
あなたが近くにいてくれるだけで 霊障は霞のように散ってしまうのだから。
After all, whenever you're near, the hauntings just fade away.
お安いご用です。いつでも呼んでください。
No problem. Call on me anytime.
僕ももっと修行に励まなくちゃ。
In the meantime, I gotta train harder.
そうすることで救ってあげられる人たちがいるんだから。
Especially now that I have people I'm fighting for. That's right. I had to save those people, no matter what.
なら
In that case,
僕には黒髪さんも救ってあげられるでしょうか。
can I save Kurakami too?
だといいのだけれど。
I sure hope so.
トエちゃんは最も濃く呪いの裾を受け継ぐ生贄の末裔の本家。
But Toei's from the main family. She's inherited the most soot by far.
きっとシャチホコ部で彼女の霊障も少しは和らいでると思うけれど。
I'm sure being in the LCSC helps her out with her hauntings even a little, but...
彼女はほとんどいつも心ここにあらずという感じです。
Most times I see her, it's like she's there in body but not in spirit.
あれは霊障なんですよね。
It's because of the hauntings, isn't it?
そうよ。
Yes.
昔はあれほどじゃなかったそうね。
I hear it didn't used to be this way.
小学校の高学年になったくらいからみるみる悪化したんですって。
They say she started getting worse in the later years of grade school. How awful. So she spent nearly the entire day trapped in hauntings? So bad she could barely hold a proper conversation? That was her day-to-day life?
先生、彼女がいつも抱いているあの人形は何ですか？
Miss Hinagata, what's with the doll she's always carrying?
今となっては何か大切な意味があるように思います。
After hearing what you're saying, I'm thinking it must hold some special significance.
あれは1000年前から現代に受け継がれた唯一の秘術。
The doll is a secret technique that's been passed down through the generations for thousands of years.
人形は古来から人間の不幸の身代わりとされてきたわ。
It's been told for thousands of years that people can accept misfortune, the dolls can accept misfortune in place of people. Now what I'm wondering is this a good thing or is this a dark art? You know, there was that book of the dark arts they were supposed to burn. Did they actually burn it or did they keep it? And could that be part of some of the problems too? They just kind of threw in the line, you should burn this book and you should run before morning. And they also haven't told us who they've sacrificed yet, right? So we don't really know who they... I mean, I'm guessing the Shrine Priestess was involved. Maybe she was chosen as the sacrifice. And maybe our main hero tries to, like, run in and save her, so he gets a little bit of the soot. I don't know. So it's been told for centuries the dolls can accept people's misfortune.
言うなれば不幸を吸い取ってくれる脱脂麺みたいなものね。
Dolls are like cotton that absorbs misfortune.
だから古い人形にはたくさんの不幸が染みついてる。
So older dolls are brimming with misfortune.
人形供養というのはそういう人形に染みついた不幸を払うための儀式なのよ。
You know how they hold memorial services for dolls? It's a ritual to exorcise the misfortune stored up in a doll.
つまり黒髪さんのあの人形は自分の霊障を和らげるための。
So you mean the doll Kurakami carries is to ease her hauntings?
そう。学校の子たちには呪いの人形なんて言われて怖がられているけれど。
That's correct. The students may think it's a creepy cursed doll.
実際は逆。彼女の呪い、霊障を和らげるための大切な人形なのよ。
But in fact, it's the opposite. It's there to mitigate her curse, her haunting. It seemed as if it wasn't an ordinary Japanese doll. It was a special doll to ward off evil, made solely for Toei Kurakami. Sadly, there was no way to make dolls to ease the hauntings of the Kurakami family sacrifice. Oh, sadly, they only knew how to make dolls to ease the hauntings of the Kurakami family sacrifice. No one could make such a doll for Kiko and the others.
本来は一つの人形で7月は持つ強い霊力のある人形のはずなのにね。
Originally, a single doll had enough spiritual power to last 7 months.
トエちゃんの代になってから人形の消耗が早すぎるの。
But Toei's dolls waste away far too fast.
機器もかなり悪くなってる。これは いい傾向ではないわ。
Their effects have gotten a lot weaker. Things aren't looking up. So she might die before she can have a baby?
この人形供養殿に供養されている人形、
Wait, then all the dolls in the memorial hall.
まさか
Could they all be? I took another look at the countless dolls lying in the hall. They were all the same size, bore the same presence, and their long black hair reminded me of Kurakami's. People said Iwaimoto's shrine had become a doll memorial shrine, but in reality...
そう。この人形供養殿は、本来は一般の人の人形を供養するためのものじゃないの。
That's right, this hall isn't for the dolls of ordinary people.
黒髪家の生贄たちを慰めてきた人形が、ここで供養されているのよ。
It was made to inter the dolls that would ease the suffering of the Kurakami family's sacrifice.
これが全部
You mean all of them?
一般から受け付けた人形供養はお焚き上げするから、ここには置かれない。
The dolls they receive from people are cremated, so they're not interred here.
ここに現存するものはすべて黒髪家の生贄が使った人形たちなのよ。
Every single doll you see here was used as a sacrifice of the Kurakami family. That's a lot of sacrifices. There are way too many of them to even begin counting. Most of them were brand new. They must have been the ones Kurakami had used. All of them were a testament to how long she'd suffered. Now that I thought about it, she'd been on my mind from the moment I first laid eyes on her. I knew it sounded arrogant, but it felt like my destiny to do something about all of this. I want to save Kurakami. I finally understood what my heart had been telling me ever since I first saw her.
先生が僕に何を話したかったのか
I understand what you
理
wanted,
解しました。
what you wanted to tell me.
僕にできることがあれば何でも協力させてください。
If there's anything I can do to help, please let me.
鈴原君、
Suzuhara,
ありがとう。
thank you. Once she realized the nightmares that had been plaguing her were, in fact, hauntings, Miss Hinagata had started researching. In doing so, she traced their source back to a curse that Susuda had passed down for 1,000 years. What she found was simple. To save the descendants of the original sacrifice, who were still suffering from the curse at Soot. To break the chains of the curse that had persisted for a millennium, and to save them. And through the LCSC, she had finally found a way to alleviate the hauntings. But that wasn't enough. It was at that point that she met me.
鈴原君さえ良ければ、ぜひ一度鈴原君のお父さんと話をさせてほしいの。
If you don't mind, I'd like to speak to your father, Suzuhara.
鈴原流親善武術。それに、どうして霊障を抑える力が宿るのか。
What is the Suzuhara divine tribute style, and why does it possess such a power?
そのメカニズムが解明できれば、生贄の末裔たちを救うことができるかもしれない。
If I can ascertain how it works, I may discover a way to save the descendants of the sacrifice.
黒髪さんを救う手がかりが見つかるかもしれない。
Perhaps we'll find a clue to saving Kurakami as well.
そうね。
You're right.
もし、親善武術を学ぶことで、その力を得られるのなら。
If I could obtain such a power by learning the divine tribute style.
私、鈴原流に入門。親善武術を極める。霊障克服のみならず、親善武術部創設へ。
Join the Suzuhara Dojo. Master the divine tribute style. Hasta la vista, hauntings. Establish the DTSC.
鈴原くんを部長に迎えちゃったりとかね。
I'll even make you club president. The Divine Tribute Style Club is the DTSC. The Suzuhara Divine Tribute Style, traditional martial arts that have been passed down for generations. I've been training my whole life, yet I never knew much about it. Perhaps now is the time to finally learn. And maybe, just maybe, I'd discover a hint towards saving Kurakami.
今日はありがとう。長々と突拍子もない話に付き合ってくれて。そして、信じてくれて。
Thanks for today. You put up with such a long, crazy story, and you still believe me in the end.
いいえ。今は自分が役に立てることが分かって、
Really?
嬉しいくらいです。
It's nothing. I'm just glad to know there's a way I can be of use.
そして、できることなら、黒髪さんも救ってあげたい。
If there's even the slightest chance I can save Kurakami, I want to take it.
その方法を私と一緒に探しましょう。
Then let's find out how we can do so together.
はい。
Got it.
社長コブには行ける限り参加しようと思います。
I'll participate in the LCSC as much as I can.
僕がいればみんなの霊障が抑えられるんですよね。
I'll soothe their hauntings while I'm there, right?
ええ。そして誰かがひどい霊障に倒れた時には呼ぶから駆けつけてほしいの。
Sure, I'll let you know if they get hit by a particularly nasty haunting, so I'll be counting on you there.
もちろんです。いつでも呼んでください。
Of course, I'll come running whenever you need me.
黒髪さんの様子もよく見ていてほしいの。
And I'd like you to keep an eye on Toei.
あまりに体調が悪そうだったら私に伝えてね。
Let me know if you think she's having it really rough.
それから彼女の人形。
And don't forget about the doll.
霊障を和らげる重要なものですね。
The doll is key to easing her haunting, correct?
それでも霊障でぼんやりしててうっかり手放してしまうこともあるの。
It is, but there are times when she's so spaced out that she drops it.
その時は人形を拾って手渡してあげればいいんですね。
If that ever happens, I should just pick it up and give it back to her, right?
ええ。私も注意して見てるけど、鈴原くんもお願いね。
Yes, I'll watch out for it too, but I'd like you to do the same.
万が一にも壊してしまうことがないように注意してね。
Just be careful not to break it. Now you know we're gonna break it.
もし壊れてしまったら。
What would happen if the doll broke?
彼女以外の誰にも想像もできないくらいの恐ろしい霊障が
If the doll broke,
一度に彼女に襲いかかるでしょうね。
she'll be struck by a haunting so horrifying no one could possibly ever begin to imagine.
おい、お前、俺の言うことなら何でも聞くんだよな。
Hey Toei, you'll do whatever I ask, yeah?
はい、翔様。
Yes, Sho-sama.
あのさ、
Let me ask you
質
something.
問だけどさ、お前がいっつも抱いてるその人形と俺、どっちが大事よ。
What's more important to me, to you? Me or the doll you carrying?
つーかさ、焼けるんだよね。
I gotta say, I'm jealous of that damn thing.
俺のこと一目惚れとか言い名付けとか言いながらよ、一番の仲良しはそのお人形ちゃんなわけだろ。
You say you fell for me, but you're always carrying that doll. That's your best pal, isn't it?
俺の言うこと何でも聞けるならよ、
If you really do whatever I ask,
その人形連れて歩くのいい加減にしろや。
then stop walking around with that damn thing already.
それはできない。
I can't do that.
ああ
What did you say? Sho was blinded with rage. To have the girl who did anything he ordered without complaint defy him in any way infuriated him more than anything else. But due to the roar of the music and the lighting, none of his followers noticed.
てめえが土下座したから俺は言い名付け様になってやったんだろうが。あ
Aren't you the one who begged on her knees to be my wife? Well,
俺に捨てられたらてめえみてえなきめえ女誰も相手にしねえんだぞこら。
who's gonna marry a creepy ass bitch like you except me?
仕方かよ。
What are you, an effing deer in the headlights? Say something. Sho snatched the doll from Toei. Toei wrestled with him in an attempt to get it back. Sho was a bit surprised by the unexpected display of strength.
だってめやる気か。
The hell, you wanna go?
返して返して
Give it back, give it back.
なめんなくそ甘
Don't F me with me, you goddamn bitch. Oh no. When Sho struggled, the doll, the two were sent flying back. Or when he tugged hard on the doll, the two were sent flying back. The doll had been torn to pieces.
なんだこりゃ。
Whoa, what the hell? Something that looked like a spine dangled out of the head of the doll Sho was holding. It was dark, red, thick, and wriggled nauseatingly.
姫マジかよマジかよ。
Gross. Is this for real? Sho threw it to the ground, got up and stomped it all over it with his might. His followers finally noticed and watched in horror as their leader kept stomping in a sudden fit of agitation.
どうしたんすか？
What's going on?
こいつの人形超きめえってなんか動いてたし動いてたし。
There's something messed up with this doll. It's moving. I swear to God it's moving. The ground by Sho's feet was too dark for his followers to make out due to the strobe lights. All they could tell was that something had freaked him out. Not wanting to get mixed up with whatever that was, all they could do was watch in silence.
Shoさん、女泡吹いてるっすよ。
Sho, your girl's foaming at the mouth there.
Huh?
Toei was lying on the sofa. Foam and saliva were spewing from her mouth. So gross.
大丈夫っすかこいつ。なんか決めてんじゃないっすか。
Is she okay? She ain't high or something, is she?
こいつたまに意識飛ぶんだよな。ほっときゃケロッと起きるから気にすんな。
She blacks out often enough. She'll wake up sooner or later. Just ignore her. Sho had seen Toei lose consciousness due to sudden hauntings more times than he cared to count. So he just urged his followers to get back to singing, and before long, they turned away from Toei and resumed partying. Sho threw his feet on the table and glared sullenly at Toei. Toei continued foaming at the mouth. Gradually, the bubbles darkened before going black as ink. Then all of a sudden, she slowly opened her eyes. No one noticed the way they glowed like flames flickering in the darkness. Toei slowly raised her head. She raised her hand into the air, closed her fingers one after another, and stretched them out. Almost like she was trying to learn how she functioned. She wiped her mouth, and her lips curled into a smirk. After that, she crawled over to Sho and placed her head on his chest, as if listening for a heartbeat.
どうしちゃったよ。積極的じゃねえか。
What's gotten into you? You in heat? Sho thought of Toei only as a robot, who performed commands on a delayed timer. So he was stunned to see her do something of her own volition. His eyes met hers. Her face was shrouded in shadow, but her eyes and lips looked bewitching in the light. Sho couldn't help but gulp.
感謝するぞ。
I must thank you, Sho. That was the first time she hadn't called him sir. Normally, Sho would have run out of patience with her right then and there. But there was something in Toei's voice that sent shivers down his spine.
千年、人間のクズの中のクズには、およそ出会い尽くしたが。
Over 1,000 years, I've met my share of the scum of mankind.
お前は、その中でもなかなかの上物だったぞ。
But even amongst them, you truly stand out, Sho. Those words should have been insults to him, yet they stirred a moral pleasure within Sho. That enticing creature with Toei's face had completely seized his soul.
それにしても黒髪め、このような男をよくも見つけ出したものだ。
Still, I must commend Kurakami. He did a fine job finding a man like this.
この時世、すすの一粒も持たぬ男など、よくも見つけたもの。
It could not have been easy to locate a man without a single speck of soot in this day and age.
だが、もういい。
But now it no longer matters.
最高の地層が現れたのだから。
Not when the greatest delicacy of man has appeared.
お前、さっきから何を言って。
You're not making any sense.
生臭い。喋るな、人間。
You reek. Silence that tongue, human. Tai placed her slender hand on Sho's chin as though to lift it up. She trembled as her fingers stroked the underside of his jaw. Bit by bit, his head began convulsing. All of a sudden, his eyes rolled back and his mouth shot out as a trail of drool ran down his face.
人の子らはゲスのことを畜生とも呼ぶな。
The children of men refer to lowlifes as beast, right?
ならば、それにふさわしく。
Then to match that,
角をくれてやろう。
I should give you a pair of antlers. Blood sprayed out of Sho's ears. Just then, claws manicured with crimson blood poked out of his ear holes. They were fingers, Toe's dainty fingers. They emerged slowly from Sho's auditory canals. At that moment, there was a crack and drops of blood leaked from Sho's eyes and nose. Even more antlers, no, those were just Toei's fingers, poked out of him. Two more of them pierced through Sho's skull like horns.
立派な角だな。 畜生にはふさわしかろう。
Such dignified antlers. Truly befitting of a beast. She removed her hands from his chin and viscous blood started gushing out. One of Sho's followers happened to turn his head and witness the whole thing. Even amidst the dazzling light show, he couldn't tell from a glance Sho was dead. His eyes agape and blood stained with blood. He could tell he was dead. The followers' pathetic shriek drew the attention of the rest, who screamed one after another.
敬意の眼差しも悪くはないが。
Being gazed upon with reverence is certainly a boon.
やはり、イフの方が心地よいか。
However, expressions wrought with fear are far more satisfying. Toei grimaced as though, suffering from a headache. A sound like snapping tree branches resounded loudly through the room. The delinquents' eyes went wide as saucers as they were rendered speechless by the spectacle unfolding before them. Every one of them could see antlers growing out of Toei's head. They were the majestic antlers of a sacrificial deer. A sacred deer. Toei groaned as she gripped her head. Run away. Hurry. They all heard her, of course, but they were too stunned to move. Though the room was bursting with sound and color, time stood still.
ひれ伏せ、人にどもめ。
Prostrate yourselves, accursed man demon. No, they should have ran.
お待たせしました。
Thanks for waiting. Whoa! The employee bringing the group's order bumped into Toei just as she opened the door.
失礼しました。
Sorry. Once the employee moved out of the way, Toei left the room and disappeared down the dark hallway. The employee couldn't help but be overcome with surprise at the girl's extraordinary bearing. She quickly composed herself and entered the room. Ah.
死ぬわけではないのじゃ。呪いをすべてその身に背負ってもらうだけじゃ。
Okay, so we're not going to read this part yet. We will save this for another session. This is a long session. Was this like a few hours? So I'm definitely going to save this for another time. Maybe later tonight, maybe tomorrow. But I'm saving for now, and I will continue another time. So yeah, a lot happened, but it was also a lot of stuff in the past that they were going over, and then obviously the whole thing with Kurakami losing her doll, Sho getting killed. We also found out that Sho is basically a pure-blooded human who doesn't have any soot in him, which is very rare these days, you know. So yeah, we'll find out what happens later. Bye-bye.